Amud Aleph. Rabbi Yitzchak Shal. Rabbi Yitzchak asks, why don't we say in our Mishnah when it says the Yavama goes out by Chalitza? So why don't we say Ben B'Chalitza's Chaverta? She goes out whether it's with her Chalitza or whether with her friend's Chalitza, right? It's either one. So Chazar B'Amar, he said, he reneged on his question. He said, no, it's not a question. Mat Ninon, what does it say? What does it say? Now I'm going to change around like Shai Teres Yisrael does the two words here. It should be Mat Ninon B'Chalitza. Does it say in her own chalitza? No, it says b'chalitza. Okay, so just transposing those two words. So it doesn't say her own dafka. It's any chalitza. So if I'm going to go out, not just her own chalitza of any of the co-wives. So that means a bein b'chalitza. So a bein b'chalitza is chaverta. Either one. Says, wait a minute, that can't be. Vatzina doesn't say in the Mishnah b'biyah that Yivam is acquired by biyah. Isach member bein b'biyah se bein b'biyah is chaverta. Can you say that it's biyah means either one? Obviously not. You can't do both. It's either one or the other, right? And whoever gets the biyah is the one who actually is misyabemis. Rather, masnisa yibiva ma'achas. Rather, enochanami. It's true. Chalitza works on any one of the Yavamas to exempt the other ones. But our mission is talking about whether there's one Yavama, right? Not two Yavamas, right? So, what's bothering him, Rabbi Yitzchak? By two Yavamas, that's not the topic of our Mishnah. We're not concerned with that. Okay? Rashua Rabbi Yitzchak boy, Rashua Rabbi Yitzchak asked, Shivcha charufa b'mei koina atzma, l'focha min ha'malchus. A shivcha charufa is a woman who's half slave and half free. Okay? Now, her status halacha is really an interesting one, which is going to be discussed here. So Shivcha Charufa is half slave and half free. She has some form of marriage, because the Torah says she does. Otherwise, we would assume she has no marriage. A Chatzi Eved Chatzi Ben Chorin cannot contract the marriage, but a Chatzi Shivcha Chatzi Bas Chorin can contract the marriage. It's an interesting dichotomy. So Shivcha Charufa, but when she goes out of the whatever form marriage she has. How does she acquire herself? Now, also, her marriage is not true issues, and therefore, somebody has relations to her while she's quote-unquote married is not going to get killed. But rather, all he gets is malchus. He only gets flogged. And she gets flogged, too. The child is an eved. It has to be, it's chatzi eved. No, it has options. It has to be released. So it's not a bomb. But it's also a level of the call because it has its own options. So what's the status of vis-a-vis Malchus? What's her status vis-a-vis Malchus to exempt her and the guy's relations with her from Malchus? So, actually, I think the guy who relations her does not get Malchus. She gets Malchus. The guy who has relations her just brings a korban. Even if it's bemazed, it's Asham Shivcha Rufa is brought even if the guy was bemazed. So what exempts her from the status? So says the Gemara, Pshita she'ena yoytze beget. There's no get in this case, no such thing. If somebody is half slave and half free, a male, there's no marriage with the kava saw, and similarly, if he divorces, there's no divorce. And here too, if she gets divorced, there's no concept of divorce, right? There's no concept of divorce, right? It's interesting, the Mayana Yeshua on the bottom here brings down that, or notes that the Rambam does not bring down that which you say here, Ein Choshim L'Gerushin, that there's no such thing as divorce, right? So, so it's possible, I'm not sure exactly how to explain it. Why the Rambam doesn't bring it down at all. But it's possible that the Rambam holds that, again, like we said before, that since there is a half slave component, half free component, so maybe I don't know. I'm not sure. I thought this morning I had some approach, but now I'm not sure. But the bottom line is, my issue is bothered by why the Rambam doesn't bring down that Ein Chashim Gerushin. There's no such thing as divorce by Chatzi Shivcha Chatzi Baschori. But here the Gemara says no such thing as divorce. So out of some Pshita on the other hand, it's Pasha, she yotzes b'mitzvahs bavla. If her husband dies, whatever husband she has, so she gets out of state of Shivcha Rufa, and then if she's adulterous, there's no such thing as adultery anymore, she wouldn't get Malchus, and the person that has later would not bring an Osham Tolu, right? Now, how do we know that? How do we know such thing as Misas Abal by Shivcha Harufa? In order to establish such thing as Misas Abal, we have to establish that there is a Baal. Because normally Baal means something else, right?
So I know that a Shivcha Harufa is considered to have a Baal. In other words, that her husband is truly her husband. So it says, I'll establish it from this way. Because the Amar Rabbi Yosef B'Shem Rabbi Yochanan, it's the name Rabbi Yochanan, Tirgim Akilas Hagel Lifnei Rabbi Akiva, Akilas, which is, we don't know if it's Unklus or not, but it's somebody who either was Unklus or somebody who functioned like Unklus. He wrote a translation of the Torah. So Akilas, the Ger, said for Rabbi Akiva, it says by Shivcha Charufa, Bi Shivcha Necharefes Leish. What does Necharefes mean? So it says here, interesting derivation, I don't think it's in the Bavli. It means she's pressed or compressed in front of a man. Like it says, it says it's by Orpa somewhere that it's something which she no, not by Orpa. So David was hiding from when he ran away from Avshalom, I think, and he hid in a certain place, and the woman of the house put atop him some rifos, and rifos it's like pressed mash. And it was, it seemed like there was nobody underneath there, and that way its pursuers didn't find him. So this rifos we see is something which is pressed or mashed. So therefore, shiur is a woman who's pressed or mashed, which obviously is kind of a derogatory way of saying that she is under the heel of a husband. So that's why Misas Abal is going to exempt her from being under the heel of that husband, because she does have a husband, okay? A slightly different shot, but same idea. Rabbi Yochanan said, can't pitch Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon explained, Livnei Chachamim in front of Chachamim, V'shivcha nechrefes leish, same idea, she's pressed or compacted in front of a man. Kamadatema, like you say, v'socha rifos bali, within the rifos, again the mash bali in the mortar and pestle. Okay. Now, that's, so she acquires herself by whoever her husband is dying. This is actually a very, very fascinating question. She's half slave. I mean, she's half husbanded by her husband because she's half free. But she's half enslaved by her master, who's not her husband, but is her master. So we said if her husband dies, she's exempt from the state of Ishus, of marriage. What if her master dies? Because that changes her status too, right? So maybe the fact that she gets half freed by her master dying exempts or takes her out of the marriage, whatever marriage she's contracted. It's an amazing concept if you think about it. But that's what I was asking.
Does she remain in the family?
No, Mar's going to say explicitly later on. There's no. This going according to opinion which holds. Look right before the Mishnah. It says, "Command Damar ain eved ivri over the shiur, right?" So we're going. We're. Oh, wait a minute. You're right. Those that have she was a shivcha knanis, right? So it must be where there's no air. Good point. Yeah, it must be there's no air. That's a good point. Because if there's an heir, she will go to the next generation. Okay. Mashli Natzah Mitzvahs Rabba, Uvahashlim Sheish. Or, what happens if her husband is a slave, and that's going to come, we're going to explain in a minute, and his 6 years are up. Because who's allowed to marry Shivcha Charufa? She's half slave. A real Yisrael shouldn't be allowed to marry her. But an Eved Ivri is allowed to marry a slave, right? Eved Ivri can have a relationship with a Shivcha Knanis. So what happens if her husband, the Eved Ivri's term as an Eved Ivri expires? Okay, so we have two questions. Mrs. Rabba, her master dying, and Ishlim Sheish, his 6-year term expiring. Or do those terminate whatever relationship exists? So it says, Matzri Cholei. Literally means what? But here it means according to whom is this a question? Rabbi Akiva, is this question according to Akiva? Obviously not, the Gemara says. The Rabbi Akiva says, what's a Shivcha Charufa? She's half slave and half free. Says she's betrothed to Ben Chorin. That's Shivcha Charufa. Now she's only Mureses, but I'll explain this according to the Ritbaz. She's only Mureses, not Nesua. Right? She's only Mureses and not Nesua, so therefore the way the Ritbaz explains it, it's not really a marriage. So the marriage is not terminated by the death of the master. It's not terminated by 6 years because it's talking about B'mureses leben chayrin. So there's no 6 years to talk about, right? Because she's betrothed to a free man. So what in essence it means to be betrothed to a free man in this case means that he's waiting till she gets fully freed in order to fully marry her. Go beyond betrothal to actually suing. So in that case, Mitzvahs Rabba doesn't exempt her because that's what he's waiting for. He's waiting for her to be freed in order to complete and consummate the marriage, right? So if that's what Shivcha Charufa is, so certainly Mitzvahs Rabba doesn't let her get out, right? And of course you can't talk about Ishlim Sheish, 6 years of Savdus being over, because this guy, he doesn't go free after 6 years since he's not an Eved. It's an Shivcha Ruva Mureses leben chayrin, right? So that can't be a question for him. We're not talking about Korei Kiva. Ram Kavi Shmuel Tzricholei. Ashai is like Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel Mar Shivcha Knanis Hanesul Eved Ivri. Rabbi Shmuel says a Shivcha Charufa is Shivcha Knanis Chatzi Shivcha Chatzi Baskoret Hanesul Eved Ivri. Now Ribas goes crazy over this. I mean, in a positive sense. He says, what do you mean Nesua? How can I'm Nesuin with the Shivcha Knanis? Right? What does it mean Nesuin? But he says, look further. He says, in Nesue Teiroheim, that's if they're considered to be Nesuin by the Torah. In other words, it's not true marriage. Shin Eved Ivri and Shivcha Knanis. Because after all, it says that if an Eved Ivri, after a 6-year term is up, they split, right? He goes back home, right? So it's not true marriage, but it's some sort of bond. That's what it says here. Im Adonav yitain lo isha. It says if his master gives him a wife, right? And that wife it's talking about is not a regular Israelis, but a Shivcha Knanis. So we see, we don't know how to define it, but there's some sort of relationship called Nisuin by the Torah between an Eved Ivri and a Shivcha Knanis. And that relationship is Shivcha Charufa as well, except that she's an Eved Ivri and a woman who's half slave and half free. So our relationship is even greater bond. But maybe it's less of a bond, because it's a paradoxical bond. Is he bonded as a free man, or is he bonded as a slave? So according to Rabbi Shmuel, Lord Tzurchador, the law, in other words, according to him, only according to him we ask the question. Because since a relationship to him is contingent on her shivchus.
hooking into his avdus. If she goes free, maybe that disrupts the entire relationship. And on the other hand, Vishlum Sheish, when his term is up, maybe that disrupts the relationship. Besides, because of this paradoxical nature of the relationship, right? She's half slave and half free, and those two forces oppose each other. And also, he's an Eved Ivri, because Rabbi Shmuel is talking about a case where he's an Eved Ivri, so it'd be considered to be a form of nisuin, a form of actual marriage, albeit a lesser one. So that's our question. Does her freedom or his freedom disrupt that bond and make her no longer shikha charufa? Okay? And of course, going to Karman Domar, Ein Eved Ivri Ovedus Hayorish. It's going according to the opinion that Eved Ivri does not pass on to the heir afterwards. So in other words, the Eved Ivri doesn't pass on to the heir. So when her master dies, you know, I'm going back. I want to go back to what he said before. I realized I made a mistake. When I answered you before, I was wrong. It's obviously talking about where they both have the same master. They both have the same master. So if the master dies, she might not go free, but he goes free. So actually, both questions, it might. I think the whole answer to the Gemara was wrong. I think what it actually means is our question's not on her, even if, because you're right, because what you asked me before, which took me aback. Even if her master dies, she still gets inherited to the next generation. The question is when her master is also his master. So the question we're asking here, both questions we're asking are on his side of the coin. In other words, if her master, which is his master as well, dies, or if his 6-year term is up, in both cases he goes free. In that case, does that terminate the marriage? We're not asking because she goes free. Taka, that might be a good question to ask, but we wouldn't have asked it by saying that her master died, because of your question. Because her master dies, she just goes to the next generation. No, we're asking because if the master dies, he, who's enslaved as an Eved Ivri by the same master, goes free. So that's our question. And when he goes free, either because his master dies or because the 6-year term is up, does that undermine whatever relationship they had, because their relationship was based on the fact that he was an Eved Ivri till now? And the Gemara, of course, doesn't answer it. That's a good, okay, that's the pshat. Okay. Well, now on the topic of Eved Ivri. Did he say he's not coming tonight? He didn't say, did he? Eved Ivri kan nikna b'kesef b'shtar. And Eved Ivri is acquired by keb, by money, and by documents. The kohen is atzum b'shanim, and he acquires himself after 6 years elapsed, u'v'yovel, or when the yovel comes, v'gron kesef, and by deducting from his purchase price. In other words, by what's the word? Prorating. Prorating is just deducting per year, right, until he reaches low enough where he has enough funds to actually redeem himself. You say, this is Eved Ivri, you say, love Amevriya, a female is superior to that in respect. She she acquires herself when she becomes an adult. Hanirta, Eved Ivri underwent Ritzia, right, his ear was pierced because he stayed beyond 6 years. Nikne B'Ritzia, he's acquired by his master by the piercing of the ear. The Kreis Atzmo acquires himself B'Yovel, either B'Yovel, whenever that comes, U'V'Misa Sardan, or when the master dies. See, it says, when your male or female brethren are sold to you, Ikish really Ivriya. It's a linkage short here between a male slave and a female slave. Just like an Ivriya, a female slave is acquired by money and by documents, because the puzzle which speaks about female slave also draws a parallel to marriage. It says, it says she's supposed to or eventually marry her. there's a linkage drawn there between marriage and slavery. So we know that just like marriage is by Kesef V'Shtar, so too Avdus is by Kesef V'Shtar. Okay? By the way, it's going to come up, one of the fascinating things tonight is who writes the Shtar. Either one. Who do you think? That's right, though, too. Okay. We're wrong. Okay, so, no, we're right, but we're wrong, too. So, so that's what Kesef V'Shtar. Nicha. We're right, and we're wrong. You'll see. Nicha b'kesef. Well, I understand money. You'll see if it says beyond Zochina main kesef. It says when she goes out, she goes free without any money. But it means she went into Abdus through money. V'shtar minola. How do we know that by shtar she goes into Abdus by shtar? We made her be baschorin, so that for a free woman who gets married, v'shtar, so to a maidservant gets married, becomes a maidservant with shtar. V'ivri laman mi'ivriya. And Eved Ivri is learned out from an Amma Ivriya. Says more, wait a minute. Nimtzo lamed melamed. So we have a two-stage limud here. We're learning out from something else. We're learning Ivri from Ivriya and Ivriya from marriage. So it's two stages. Now, that's good. I could do Rabbi Kiva the Isli Lamed and Lamed. According to Rabbi Kiva, that's good. He says you can learn out something else which is itself derived from elsewhere. However, Rabbi Shmuel, the Lazy Lamed and Lamed, Rabbi Shmuel, you can't do that. Now, in the Bavli, this is only a problem by coaching. We know that Ein Lamed Mina Lamed by coaching, but not by the rest of Shas. But Yerushalmi, obviously, it's according to Rabbi Shmuel, it's always a problem. Okay? The Yerushalmi arguing about it. It says in Ashkachtani, so they found the price of where Rabbi Shmuel said, I'm going to learn this like the Shari Teres Yitro, which is Lomad instead of Loham Mila. Lomad, and its next word should be Chavshi. And the word Chavshi is written by Eved Ivri, that after 6 years he goes out Chavshi. He learns out from Michufsha, from the word Chufsha, which is her freedom, which is written by Shivcha Charufa. So he learns out Shivcha Charufa is a Shivcha Knanis. So Shivcha Knanis, of course, is booked with Shtar because it's like Karkos, right? So therefore, it's not Lomed Mina Lomed anymore. In other words, it doesn't have to go from Ivri to Ivriya and then to marriage. Rather, it goes directly from Ivri to Charufa. And Charufa is not learned out for anything, but rather, in and of itself, it's considered like real estate, and therefore, Karka, the Shtar looks like that. Okay. Says the Gemara, B'chol Asar Leisa Rabbi Shmuel Lamed Mina Lamed. No, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Sorry, it's still Lamed Mina Lamed according to this price, because it's Ivri from Shivcha Charufa, which in itself is learned from Karkos. So it's still considered to be Lamed Mina Lamed. Sorry, because the next line of Gemara says, B'chol Asar Leisa Rabbi Shmuel Lamed Mina Lamed. All of Rabbi Shmuel doesn't know you learn out from something else, right? V'acha Islay Rabbi Shmuel. And here Rabbi Shmuel does hold of it. How could this be? So says the Gemara, Tani Lo B'Shem Chacham. Somebody says that he does. Okay? We don't know this Brayso. But the author of this Brayso, Takos, Rabbi Shmuel holds, you can learn out Mina Lamed. Even though you can learn out Mina Lamed. Okay? Alright. Minon Teisei. How do we know? Well, it's a little bit choppy. But how do we, is there some way to learn it not Mina Lamed? Some way to learn it directly. Says Rabbi Shmuel, if you don't hold like this Chacham of this price, so it says Lamed, Lamed, Mina Lamed, says you can do it. Shiluach. Make it say Shava Shiluach. Shiluach is written by Get, and Shiluach is written by Avodi. Mashiach shnemar alalim b'shtar, just like shluach written by get is a document. Avkan b'shtar, so to it's with the document, the acquisition of avodim. Says Marmei, how can you draw such a comparison? Lo damya, they're not comparable. Tama lak no slats more. Get it? Be makner to herself. But here the Eved is being called by others. However, Ramitani said, you're right. Let's learn it differently. He says, Mechira. We can learn it out differently. It says, an Eved should not be sold like a regular Eved. William Krumim Keres Ovid. Okay? So we see in Eved Ivri has the word Mechira attached to it. And we learn out from Mechira and the rest of I'm sorry. It says by Eved Kana. It says by Eved Ivri Loyim Krumim Keres Ovid, and we see from this that there's a constant in chorus of it, and then we see also that it says by Eved Ivri himself, Ki mochil chachicha ivriya. So we see that there's such concept as memkar by Eved Kanani, and we see the word memkar by Eved Ivri. So we learn out Eved Kanani from Eved Ivri. Eved Ivri from Eved Kanani. So I'm not sure if that's considered lamed min al lamed or not. The Gemara doesn't say. I can maybe the Charetz also lamed min al lamed. So I know we've solved. Anyway, I'm not sure about that. So the question is, however, what about chazaka? If you're going to say that we learn out from Eved Kanani is acquired by chazaka. So Eved Ivri should be acquired by chazaka as well, by using it, by making use of it. So says the Gemara, here it says, but I'm going to take this out and put it in the next line. Gilin Ephraim does that. It's in order to avoid a question asked by the Ridbaz. So let's take out let's learn who Ivri, who Ivriya. So the Gemara says, you know what? You're right. Theoretically, were we to learn out from Eved Kanani, we'd have to say that you acquired Eved Ivri by Chazaka as well. But how do we know Eved Ivri? We must go back and say we learn out Eved Ivri from Amo Ivriya. If that's the case, it's Lamed min Alamed. Okay, what can I do? But I don't want to say Chazaka. And the reason why I don't want to say Chazaka is obviously because Chazaka implies menial labor, right? What does a Chazaka in Eved mean? It means I make him work. And Eved Ivri says you're not supposed to really make him work hard. So therefore, obviously, I don't want to imply that Kinyan Chazaka works by an Eved Ivri. Okay? Says the Gemara. Now, I'm going to put in Bekesef. It says Bekesef. And everything is acquired by Kesef. How we know that? By Kesef Mim Koro. It says the money of his sale. Now, this pasuk of Kesef Mim Koro is written by a Eved Ivri who sold to a goy. If an Eved Ivri sold to a goy, he's still got to be redeemed. You can't just go to the goy and demand it back. You have to play fair. Okay? So you have to pay him back for it. Now this, let's put Rabbi Chia Brad over here. Bekesef unigal, but you can only a Jew who sold to a goy can only be redeemed by money. Not by paying the goy with grain or with vessels. It's an amazing concept. So the Or Sameach explains what the concept is. He says, you can't pay a goy for an Eved Ivri with land. Why not? Very good. I knew you would get that one. Because you can't give away land of Israel to a goy. So it's obvious you can't pay with land. But so therefore when it says Kesef here can't be coming to preclude Karka, which is normally what Kesef comes to preclude, because anyway you can't give that to a goy, so it must be including Tfu and Caleb. But why not? So the Meshech Chochmah, the Or Sameach says interesting word. He says it's a time of the crow, a reason for it. He says because we don't want to make a Chil Hashem. And if you go to a goy and say, okay, I want to pay you for the Eved you bought with in kind. So the guy will always feel cheated. So that means we have to reckon how much the in kind is worth, right? And it might not come out in the guy's mind to be properly the proper barter. So therefore we always have to pay the guy with cash. Now, but that's only says in Meshech Chochmah in explaining the continuation of the Gemara, if we're compelling him to sell us the Eved Ivri which he's holding, which we can do. If we can compel him to sell it back, but then we can only compel him for cash. Or if the guy wants to accept Kelim on his own initiative, then that's okay. And that's what I was about to say. But first I want to ask this question. We say that which is worth money is like money. You're saying that which is worth money is not like money. Why it's okay? Why can't it be like Shabbat Kesef? It's worth money, let it be like money. So says Rabbi Mori said, Shanya, here's different. Shashino love akosov. Here the pasuk stresses kesef bakesef, mentions money twice, so it means dafka money. However, of Rabbi Chia Barado, like I said, name was Samech, of Rabbi Chia Barado Yoider, Rabbi Chia Barado also concedes Shem Bikesh Ligroa. If the guy acquiesces to deduct from the purchase price based on Tful Kelim, that works even with grain, even with vessels. Now, the Samech again says that because he agreed to it, not compelling him. But there's another pshat in the Ritbaz here, that it means here to buy from the guy the Eved Ivri, you still need to use money. But the Eved Ivri was bought for $5,000, right? Let's say. You can drive down $4,999.99 with Tvur Kelim. But the last purchase back from the guy, that has to be those money. So the Giron, the prorating, can be done the way the Ritbaz learns it with Tvur Kelim, but not the last actual pruta. The way the Samech learns, no, since he acquiesced even the last actual pruta. But the way the Ritbaz is learning, that he's learning that it's very narrow. He's saying that to the only kinyan a goy has is takeh kesef, not shavet kesef, and therefore he can drive down the price of shavet kesef. But the actual kinyan back from the goy has got to be done specifically with money. Okay? Says more on Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said, Rabbi Yehuda said, that's only, again, it sounds like the Samech. That's only if you didn't reckon the precise value of the grain. If you made it like money, if you made a precise value, that's like money, and according to the Ritbaz, you can even use it for the last pruta. Okay? Bishtar. Okay? How does a star work? Rav Omer b'shtar shel kesef. It's an amazing concept. An Eved Ivri is bought by a star. He's selling himself. So who writes the star?
He wrote it as a free man.
What?
He wrote it as a
It's you, not me. Okay, so he writes the star as a free man. That's correct. So the Eved Ivri who's selling himself writes the star, right? So the Gemara says here it's got to be a star as a receipt for money, but not star shmatana. He can't give himself as a gift as an Eved Ivri. You see, he can only write a star as a sale, not as a gift. I can't give myself as a gift as an Eved Ivri to somebody. If the star must mention money, there's got to be consideration. It has to be purchased, not a gift. Okay, so why is that? So it says the Gemara, b'shtar Rabbi Yevomer b'shtar shel kesef, b'shtar matana lo. Why is that? Shem yachzor bo eved, because maybe the eved will renege on the deal and says, I don't want to be a gift to you anymore. So says more the obvious question. If that's the case, I feel b'shtar shel kesef yochul yachzor bo. If we're afraid that the eved's going to renege, so you should be afraid that it's going to renege even if it's a document which is written for consideration. If a guy is going to renege, he's going to renege because he doesn't like Avdus anymore. So what's the difference?
He has to buy himself out.
What?
He can't just renege. He has to buy himself out. He has to redeem himself. He can't just change his mind.
Well, he can't change his mind once to give himself as a gift either. Why should he be able to change his mind either way? So the Gemara says, the Gemara looks at the other direction. What it means is, we look at it the other way. That we're afraid that the master is going to renege. Because the famine will come, he doesn't want to support the Seven anymore. So therefore we say that a master who bound himself to the Eved by paying for the Eved, he knows that he can't renege on the deal because the deal was cemented. But a master who bought the Eved, who didn't buy the Eved, just got the Eved as a gift, he never really feels that affinity to the Eved. It's like an asmachta lo kanya. It's an interesting concept. You spend money on the Eved, then the bond to the Eved is considered to be real. If you don't spend money on the Eved, so it's not considered to be a real bond, and therefore it's not a true sale of Avdus. Okay, it's interesting. It's the bottom line, right? Money makes it real. Okay? Says the Gemara, Seder Mechir Kachu. How do you sell? This is amazing brisa. Ani ploini mecharti biti ploini. This is how do you sell your daughter as a slave? You write a document. The seller writes a document. I sold my daughter into slavery. Seder Kiddushin Kachi. How do you mekadesh a girl? Kachu ani ploini kidashti biti ploini. Says the Gemara, the father writes the document to the husband. We always thought the husband writes the document to the father, right? Just like he writes document Harei Mekudeshesli, he writes Harei Bitcho Mekudeshesli. No, the father writes it. Now the Yerushalmi says that that's only a father. A woman could never write her own Shtar Kiddushin. A father can says the Chumash is biti nasati li'ishozeh. That when a father marries off his daughter, he's actually, so to speak, selling his daughter. It's a form of sale. A girl does not sell herself. She allows the husband to be mekadesh her. So therefore, the Yerushalmi says even the Yerushalmi agree that it's only where a father is marrying off his daughter that the father writes the documents. But if a daughter marries herself, then the husband has to write the documents. But still a major chiddush over the Bavli. Because in the Bavli, the assumption is always that even if the father is marrying off his daughter, that the husband always writes the documents to either the daughter or the father, depending on the situation. Okay? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Chagai, Boikum Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Chagai asked Rabbi Yossi, Yichlif Omar, what if he switched and he said, Ani pleni lokachti bito shel pleni? What if he wrote the document? I'm buying his daughter as a slave. Ani pleni kidashti bito shel ploni. I bought her as a wife. Amalei said, Mabakach. Doesn't matter. So we see that either one can write the document. It's either the seller or the buyer can write the document. In both cases. Okay? But if you wrote for an Amavriya Kiddushin or by a wife, Mechira, that's not valid. Which is a nice, somewhat liberal Gemara. But you can't consider the daughter to be sold to the husband. So you can't lose the Lashon of Mechira. Which is nice. Okay? Says the Gemara, Ksiv, it says, Sheishanim Yavod. It says an Eved works for 6 years. Does it go out at the end of the 6 years? No. Talmud Lorna but says it B'Shvius Yotze. It goes on the 7th year. Does it go out at the end of the 7th year? Talmud Lorna Sheishanim Yavod says it only works for 6 years. Haketza size of work. Avi Kol Sheish. He works for 6 years. He goes out at the commencement of the 7th year. So it's a complete 6 years. It goes out at the commencement of the 7th year. Yeah. Rishvi is Yotza. It says more, B'Shvi Shalom Mechir, it's the 7th year for when he's sold. V'lo Shvi Shalom, not the 7th year of Shemitah. Hatoimer Shvi Shol Mechira, is it the 6th year, 7th year after you sold? El Shvi Shol, maybe it's the 7th Shemitah year, like next year, the Shemitah year, all of them go flee in Shemitah. No, Shomer Sheshanim Yavo, it says 6 years to work. Hare Sheshanim Amuros. That's telling us that he worked for 6 years. Hamani Mekayim Ushvias Yetzei. So it says he works for 6 years, not the 6 years of Shemitah, but a 6-year period. So there, when it says Rishvias Yetzei, it must be Shvias Shol Mechira, the 7th year after the sale, after his work for 6 years, Lo Shvias Sholem, not the 7 years of Shemitah. So it says again, Eimel Cholif, let's say the opposite, that maybe it's the 6th year of Shemitah, and the 7th is the Shemitah year. And Rabbi Zir B'Shem Ravuna, Uba Shvias Ksiv. It says, and in the 7th he'll go out. So the way the name Moshe explains it, it's that he explains that Sheshrim Yavod Uba Shvis, where sometimes he works in the 7th year. How could that be? It must be that he works in Shemitah and he goes out when his own 7th year comes. So using the word Shvis twice actually. Sheshrim Yavod Uba Shvis and Shemitah as well. Uba Shvis Yetzei, and in his own 7th year after the sale, that's when he goes out. So using B'Shvi'is twice, like schizophrenically. It's one that's going to say he works from Shemitah, then it tells us he goes out during in his own 7th year. But the Malbim on Chumash is a nicer shot, I think. It says Ubashvi'is and not Ubshnasa Shvi'is. Where Shemitah would have said B'Shnasa Shvi'is in the 7th year, which is always the term for Shemitah. It just says B'Shvi'is in the 7th. It means the 7th year after his sale, not the Shemitah year. Okay? He says another reason. Very balabatish. Not very balabatish, but very, very simple. It says, look, it says that Avodim go free in Yovel. When does Yovel come? Right. So if they all went free in Shemitah, what do you need Yovel for? If Taka every Shemitah year all of them would have gone free, so who's a slave during Yovel? What does Yovel come in? That the Yovel is not part of the Shemitah cycle, and therefore it's all every 50th year. So you're right. So Yovel and Shemitah always come adjacent to each other. But Ram, and this amazing Yerushalmi. It's only Yerushalmi, never brought down the Bavli. The opinion which holds that Yovel cycles independently of Shemitah. Now the Ohr Sameach explains an amazing concept. Shemitah is every 7th year. Yovel is the 50th year, right? So the first Shemitah Yovel Am Yisrael kept after leaving Egypt, after entering Eretz Yisrael, was the 50th year. But between each Yovel are 49 years, right? When's the next Yovel going to be in correlation to Shemitah? What? The next the next Yovel is going to be a year away from Shemitah. It's going to be the 51st year, because this is year 50. Then you're going to count another. This is right after Shemitah, right? But Shemitah remains static. The 7-year Shemitah never changed, right? And the next Yovel is going to be this.
Every Yovel is 50 absolute years.
Right, every 50 absolute years, regardless of Shemitah.
Shemitah will
right.
Overlap.
That's right. So Shemitah will be actually the 98th year after Enter Eretz Yisrael will be Shemitah. The 98th year will be Shemitah. The 100th year will be Yovel, right? Because 98 is divisible by 7. But Yovel is going to be the 100th. So the next time they keep Yovel, the second time is going to be a year gap between Shemitah and Yovel. And the third Shemitah, Yovel, is going to be 2-year gap. so on and so forth, until finally, at some point, Shemitah and Yovel will be the same year, and the next year it's going to cycle again. So according to Yerushalmi, according to this, no, there's a reason why Avodim should go out in Shemitah and in Yovel. Because Yovel doesn't immediately always come after Shemitah. Sometimes Yovel comes at a distance after Shemitah. This sheet is nowhere else in Shas. But the Yerushalmi, the Or Samech says, based on the sheet, he explained a whole bunch of things, which were not relevant to us tonight. The Malbim doesn't want to learn this way. The Malbim doesn't go to this extreme. He says, it doesn't mean that Yovel and Shemitah can separate, like I just explained it, even though that seems to be the shot. He says, it means that Yovel and Shemitah cycle independently, that it could be Am Yisrael won't keep Shemitahs, but we'll have Yovel. Or we'll have Shemitahs and no Yovel, like we have today. So either be Shemitahs are Yovel or Yovel without Shemitah. What it means is that Akash Baruch Hu made belt and suspenders. He said, if you keep Shemitahs and Yovel, and a Chanami, the Yovel is superfluous, because all the Avodim went out by Shemitah. But if you, for some reason, don't keep Shemitahs, then there should still be Yovel to take out the Avodim afterwards. Okay? So that's why you would need both. Okay? So it says the Gemara again, but the ask commander my Yovel minir shnei shvur. Ran commander my Yovel minir shnei shvur. But Mishubah be'emtza shnei shvur, sometimes Yovel comes in the middle of the 7 years, which is like your Samech explained. Rabbi in the case story, the rabbis of Sisei, they said, I feel commander my being like the opinion which holds. Take out the word ein. Shnunin is close and the bottom takes out. Yovel oil minir shnei shvur. Let's say the Yovel. Oh, no, don't take it out. Now I said, even like the Manor says, Yovel doesn't come in the middle, meaning Yovel is always after Shemitah. Nevertheless, we still need to have Yovel. I need to have Yovel because this Shvius Motzias Avodim. Shvius takes our regular slaves, but not the ones with pierced ears. The pierced ears guys, they still work to Yovel, right? So therefore, I would need to have the Gemara started out with said with Rabbi Chuna's Svara and said, well, if you say Shemitah takes the guy out of office, why do you need Yovel, right? So we just said, well, you might need, so it must be that the 7th year is not Shemitah, but the 7th year is his actual 7th year. So the Gemara gave 2 reasons why Rabbi Chud is incorrect. One is if you hold that Shemitah and Yovel cycle independently, they need Yovel anyway, right? Because Yovel either comes out at a gap from Shemitah, or there could be Yovelus without Shemitahs. So that's why you need Yovel. And now the Gemara is saying, no, anyway you need Yovel, you would need Yovel and Shemitah. That's not a right that the 7th year is his own personal 7th year. You need Shemitah for the 6-year term Avodim, and Yovel for the permanent Avodim, the ones who have Ritzia. So therefore you have to go back to the drasha of Rabbi Zia B'Sher Ravuna, that we know that Shvius is his personal 7th year, and not the Shemitah year, because it says, either like the Malbim, who Shvius and not B'Shnas or Shvius, Shvius personal 7th year, or like the B'nai Moshe said, that B'Shvius means he works in the 7th year and then goes out in his own personal 7th year. Okay, we'll stop here for this evening.